Good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m. It's Thursday, which means it's time for another episode from the BDI Empowers webinar. Today, we'll be talking about life care planning basics. Um, we're waiting for some more people to join us. This is why I'm going to go over some housekeeping items. Please be sure to keep yourself muted so we can keep the sound quality clear. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be supplied to all attendees after that meeting. Please refrain from sharing any personal information. This chat is accessible to all attendees and any personal details you share will be visible to everyone. Also, I want to point your attention to the top of your screens where you can see the chat options. This is where you can share all your questions to our speakers today. On the right of the chat option is a Q&A section where you can also post some questions. If you need to ask your question verbally, you can raise your hand and you can also use the reactions available here on Teams. As a reminder, here are all the programs under BDI Empowers. We offer behavioral health, family support services, benefits navigation, work incentive planning and assistance, job and career services, and Georgia Community Trust. With that, I would like to introduce you to our speakers today, Anna Maki and Anita Gardner.
Good morning. This is Anna Mackey. Hope everyone is doing well. So I'm the Director of Program Services at BDI and primarily got my start at BDI in the Benefits Navigation Program. And our session today on life care planning is an essential element of benefits navigation. I'm very delighted that y'all are with us this morning because this is the topic that keeps people up at night. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to kind of go through in a checklist format of all the things that we need to be doing and spend some time on a couple of the particulars today.
And then Anita is also joining us. She's been with BDI since July 2014. Prior to BDI, she was chief of staff for a state representative in Georgia. When her daughter was diagnosed with autism, she dove into the disability community to learn everything that could possibly help her daughter and has been an advocate for all individuals living with any type of disability. Anita is a manager of trust services here at BDI.
All right, so let's jump into this. And so, again, I didn't mention this in my intro, but I'm a mom too. And so I always say at the end of the day, we're just parents doing the very best we can to make sure that our kids have the best opportunity for a full and purposeful life. But it doesn't happen without a lot of work. And that's where life care planning comes into play. And I'm going to go ahead and be fully transparent and let you know that there's some really great information in this session today that I need to hold myself accountable for. Because when we start talking about the letter of intent, guess what? The cobbler's children have no shoes. I still haven't finished my son's letter of intent. So if y'all are joining this session and we start going through this whole life care planning process and we look at all the things and your to-do list is longer than your list of things that you've gotten done, that's okay. The fact that you are here and taking the time out to learn more about life care planning and all those things that need to get done, that's a yay on you. So I just want to first put that out there that this is a lifelong process of making sure that we're doing everything and getting everything in place. It doesn't happen quickly. It takes a lot of work and it feels overwhelming. And so I'm hoping that through this session, not only are we going to be able to talk about what that looks like, but we can be a support to one another. I think that one of the things I would love to see as a takeaway from this as an opportunity for us to reconnect and go, how are we doing on this? Because these are things that aren't going to jump up and down and say, work on me. All these things that happen in life take precedence sometimes. And so these things tend to get pushed to the back burner. So again, the fact that you have made this a priority this morning, thank you. Thank you for that. And congratulate yourself because you're in that top 5% of people who's getting everything done. So let's talk about what life care planning really means. So, what we're trying to do with a life care plan is figure out what the future is. And sometimes we get flummoxed by that because a lot of it is ambiguous. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what that future is going to look like. We don't know, especially when you're dealing with a diagnosis with a young child. You don't, it's going to be many, many years before they even attain adulthood. So we don't even know what their level of function is going to be as an adult. So there's a lot of guesswork that's involved with life care planning, and that's okay. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make sure that, we're doing everything and everything has to be just right. And sometimes things aren't always just right. They're the best that we have with the information that we have at that point in time. So what I would encourage you to do is kind of sit back and let's talk about what life care planning is. Go through this, take notes about what you've done and what you need to do. And then we're going to look at a couple of examples of a letter of intent. And, this is a very personal process. So there's a template that I really like that you might like a different template just because of style differences and whatnot. So I wanted to make sure you had a couple of options to look through for that. But again, when we're talking about what a life care plan is, we talk about, why didn't we get a manual that comes with our kid, to help us understand all their dynamics and what are we supposed to do. I think a life care plan, particularly that letter of intent, is the closest that we get to that manual. And this is not necessarily for you so much as it is for the person coming behind you. Who is going to be that next person who's going to be or governing the care of your loved one. So the life care plan is intended to have a lot of different pieces to it because there are a lot of different balls that we're juggling. We're juggling government benefits, we're juggling non-government benefits. We're trying to figure out the details of everything from what kind of activities they're going to be doing to what kind of programs are going to be good fits to where are they going to sleep at night. Are they going to be in their own home versus a group home? Even to the when they pass, where are they going to be? Are we going to have a burial plot for them? Are we going to cremate them? This is life care planning, all of that soup to nuts kinds of stuff that we need to codify and put pen to paper and map out so that the group coming behind us know what needs to be done. So these are the four core pieces of life planning. And I don't think you would have a complete plan if you missed any of these elements. All of these are pretty essential. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is all those government benefits. So that begins with Social Security, because Social Security is the primary form of income and health insurance. So when we're thinking about benefits, we're thinking about all things money and all things health insurance, right? So whether it's SSI or SSDI or concurrent, that's still going to be a form of income and health insurance. And then we're talking about services. So when I talk about Medicaid waivers, and I know many of you were on that Understanding Medicaid Waivers presentation, we're talking about tapping into government services. And this is important because a key element of life care planning is not only mapping out all those things that are going to happen, but it's trying to, from a financial planning perspective, put a number to that. And so, do the math. If you look at what the average comp waiver is, that's going to be 70,000 a year over the course of an individual's lifetime. So you're going to see that the cost of care can easily exceed $3 or $4 million. well, I don't think we had a lottery winner yet, so I still think there's an opportunity for all of us to become multimillionaires, but not all of us are going to be there, right? So we need to make sure then that we are doing all that we can to plan financially and be sensitive to all those rules, but also have a good idea of what that financial outlook looks like and how do we adjust for that. And so that's where these government benefits play a core role. So I'd just like to get a raise of hands, if you don't mind, of how many of y'all have social security benefits already for your loved one. Can you just get a quick picture of that? Okay, I see some hands going up. Awesome. And I know a lot of you may not have a Medicaid waiver, but hopefully you're on the planning list for a waiver. And if you're not on the planning list for a waiver and you're not sure of your eligibility, that is a great opportunity to come to one of those understanding Medicaid waivers sessions so we can make sure that you're all squared away with that. So, all right, I'm seeing some more hands going up. That's perfect. So that's number one, is looking at those government benefits, making sure that we have everything in place. And one thing I didn't mention with the government benefits are work benefits. So a lot of times when I talk about Medicaid waivers, that's really front in mind because we're talking about living, we're talking about access in the community, independent living, but a lot of times work is a core part of somebody's life. And so also want to document any benefits that we would have through rehab agency as we're going through this discussion of government benefits. So, element number one, all things government benefits. Element number two is looking at having that all important financial plan to cover non government benefits. So, what does that mean? That means other forms of resources or income. So, if again, my life is fully transparent, having a supplemental needs trust that's funded by my life insurance. So when my life insurance policy matures, then that would be money that would be in my son's trust. And it's called a supplemental needs trust for a reason. It's to supplement those other benefits, right? So he would have a comp waiver and he would have access to the supplemental needs trust. He would have an ABLE account. We have his little ABLE account set up. Not much money in it, unfortunately, but hopefully that'll change. And, again, that ABLE account is going to provide some extra flexibility so he could have a disbursement from his supplemental needs trust into his ABLE account so he can pay for things that are important to him, like taking care of his cat. He loves his cat. His cat is named Salem, and he would want to make sure that he could take her to the vet and take care of all of her needs. That could be done through the supplemental needs trust. So again, it's a balancing act. You have all your government benefits on one side, and then you have your financial plan for non-government benefits. The third thing that we need to do is we need to determine decision-making authority. And what does that mean, really? That means if we have an individual who's not able to make big financial decisions on their own, then we need to make sure that we have codified some form of support mechanism for them. And so that could look like having guardianship or conservatorship, or it could look like a power of attorney, or it could look like facilitated decision making. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but this is something that we want to address. And then finally, there's that letter of intent. So what is the letter of intent? That's the big, long blown, think ISP on steroids, right? It's everything that you would want the individual coming behind you to know about your loved one and to be able to implement. So these are the four core elements. So another word about government benefits. And again, y'all have had the opportunity to access some of our other sessions. I have one on the basics of Social Security. It's going to help you define the difference between supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance. So generally, the average or the most typical classic case of individual that we have is very much like my son, where he starts with SSI at age 18. And then when his parent, that would be me, retires, which hasn't happened yet, or becomes deceased, happily hasn't yet, um, or becomes disabled, then that individual would be able to access and transition to Social Security disability insurance. So SSDI is paid through FICA taxes. So this is based on work credits, whereas supplemental security income is based on need. You don't have to work to be eligible for supplemental security income. So most folks start with SSI and then transition to SSDI. Medicaid is tied to SSI. So anyone who is eligible for supplemental security in the state of Georgia is automatically enrolled in Medicaid. It's a fantastic benefit. One of my most common questions about Medicaid is, should I drop my private insurance because my child now has Medicaid? Short answer, no. Medicaid is a great payer of last resort. It's great for catastrophic instances. It's not the best for your day-to-day well care. So being able to have your private health insurance plus Medicaid is a big boost. And I know a lot of you worry about your individuals when they turn 26 because they come off of eligibility to stay on the parent's private insurance. But if you've gone through the process where you've gotten approved for Social Security benefits, you can use that letter of award. And in most cases, they're going to accept that letter of award as clear documentation of an adult dependent child and allow your loved one to continue receiving private health insurance on your record even after the age of 26. So that would be something, if you can swing that, definitely do that. And then Medicare comes with Social Security disability insurance as that adult dependent child. Remember, there's a 24-month waiting period before that Medicare kicks in. So we want to make sure that we are planning, and that's why we want a life care plan, so that we can figure out gaps like that and make sure that we have some mechanism to maintain that insurance, whether it's, we're going to Obamacare or utilizing COBRA or what have you during that 24-month gap. And then, of course, there's services. And so services are hard to get in Georgia, but that's why we have programs like benefits navigation to help you navigate all of that. And what we would want to do is make sure that we're maximizing services. I have had a couple of clients who are like, maybe I don't want to do now comp because there's so much regulatory. And that's where do the number crunching. Remember, if we're planning over the course of a person's life, we may be able to swing it for a couple of years, but we need to make sure that we're able to provide for our loved ones' needs for the duration of their life. So maximizing these government benefits, including Social Security benefits and any services like NELCOMP, independent care waiver, whatever is the most appropriate waiver program is very essential. And I'm going to defer to my resident expert, Anita, on the financial planning related to supplemental needs trusts and ABLE accounts. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, lovely Anna. So supplemental needs trusts, or also known as special needs trusts, and ABLE accounts were both created to protect these benefits that we've just maximized. And I'm going to go over some of the differences. The trusts, or the special needs trusts and the ABLE accounts, were created so that you can receive your benefits and receive whatever extra assets that you may receive, to protect them, so that you can continue to receive benefits and be able to supplement whatever needs you have. We kind of created the key points of consideration between the two. The sole benefit rule applies to both. I am going to breeze through this so that Anna has a little more time to go over the letter of intent towards the end. But the sole benefit rule applies to both special needs trust and ABLE accounts. The sole benefit rule is because you're receiving your benefits and you're receiving these assets at the same time, you have to pay back Medicaid when the beneficiary passes away, when the individual passes away. They both protect means tested benefits. The Medicaid payback rules are only on first party accounts for special needs trusts, not on third party accounts, but it's on all ABLE accounts. There's no maximum annual deposit for special needs trust, but there is $17,000 annual maximum deposit for ABLE accounts. They both have low fees, investment options. They're sorry. The management and investment fees for the special needs trust are a little bit higher, but there's also no value cap on the special needs trust. So there's the ability to put more funds into that. Um, Also, the special needs trust has more case management services, which the ABLE accounts don't. I mean, they have people you can connect with, but everything is online. Um, so it's not you can call and talk to people, but the special needs trust, we are talking to beneficiaries daily. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. How can the account be funded? It's pretty similar for both of them. Cash, Social Security back pay, settlement agreements, and will, estate plans, and inheritance, life insurance, and large cash gifts are pretty much the difference that special needs trust can allow. Because remember, there's that $17,000 annual deposit amount for the ABLE accounts. Let's go to the next one. Sorry. Okay. What the special needs trust and ABLE accounts can pay for is pretty similar. Some of the differences, though, that have benefited some of our beneficiaries to acquire an ABLE account as well, is that it can pay for rent, utilities, food, um, that the special needs trust is not able to pay for. So we have some beneficiaries who have both, and I recommend everyone to have both. It can't hurt to have an ABLE account. The fee is so low that it's just good to have any of those smaller amounts of excess funds go into the ABLE account so that you can pay for different things. And we have some beneficiaries who are able to use money from their special needs trust to send to the ABLE account, which is a newer Social Security guideline, which is nice. But they're able to pay for some of their rent. So, the Social Security pays for some of their rent, and then the ABLE account is able to pay for the difference. But, both of them can pay for anything that's going to supplement the needs of the individual, because, the Medicaid only pays for so much. And access to the funds is pretty similar. Both have TrueLink cards, which is like a credit card essentially that you would have for your account. We would put funds on the card, and you're able to use the card, which gives the individual a little bit more independence. They're able to go and use their TrueLink card and purchase things that they need instead of having someone else purchase it for them and get reimbursed. The Special Needs Trust has ACH direct deposits, and we pride ourselves on our 48-hour turnaround for reimbursements, which is wonderful. Ongoing bill pay services and direct vendor payments. ABLE accounts, everything is online. So there is the online bill pay, but there's that case management is a key factor in the difference, really, because we're able to communicate with people, communicate with vendors. They can go and purchase a car, and we're able to talk to the dealership and get the because purchasing a car is so right in the moment that it's needed to have someone to be able to communicate with. But we're going to do a whole nother webinar on the differences. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anna, I believe. I don't think I have a slide.
Yeah. Before we keep going, there was a question in the chat that was asking what is the difference between first and third party accounts.
The difference between first and third party accounts: a first party trust is created with an individual's money that they've already received. It's already in their name. So if they receive a settlement, that's probably the best example. A third party trust is a trust that's created before the funds are in the individual's name. So Anna created a trust for her son. It is therefore a third party trust, which is going to be funded at a later date with her life insurance. So the life insurance funds will go to him, but they will be directed to go to the third party trust, meaning they won't be in his name until they're into the trust. So that's the biggest difference besides the Medicaid payback. First party trusts have to pay back Medicaid, third party trusts do not.
Thank you.
Hmm. Oh, you're on
Anna,
mute.
you're
There we go. Sorry. Let's take just another minute to clarify the decision-making authority. So again, we need to be judicious about that and really have an awareness of the vulnerability of our loved ones. What level of risk are they at in terms of potential financial exploitation or other exploitation? And so because of that, we want to make sure we have some safeguards, and that's a very individualized decision. Some individuals require more holistic support. So in that instance, we would want to talk about guardianship or conservatorship. I put in there limited guardianship. Georgia doesn't really call it limited guardianship. What you basically are doing, though, is when you're petitioning the court, you're basically asking to retain some essential rights. So when you are pursuing guardianship for your loved one, there are some core rights that, because the individual is being adjudicated as mentally incapacitated or mentally incompetent, those rights are going to be taken away. And those includes the right to marry and the right to vote. And I think we can all agree, wow, these are pretty essential rights. Is this something that we really want to do? And so that's why, again, having this decision is very, very personal. But you can petition the court to retain some of those rights. So just know that if you're working with an attorney on the guardianship, have that conversation about exactly which rights get taken away and which rights that you can petition to maintain or retain. The power of attorney is another opportunity. It's revocable compared to guardianship, which is irrevocable, right? So that means that if the individual does not want to move forward with that power of attorney anymore, that they can take some steps. It's not as simple as just ripping up the document. There are some steps that they have to do to more or less retract or sever that power of attorney. But it is a good form of protection. I would rather have power of attorney than nothing for my son, because my son requires a lot of supports. And then finally, there's facilitated decision making. So this is helpful for those individuals who are able to make decisions, and especially those who have expressed the desire to want to have more ownership or more control of their lives. We don't want to patronize or diminish the rights of anyone, and so we want to be respectful to their interests and goals. And so facilitated decision making may be a good opportunity for those individuals. Here we go, the letter of intent. So, and just look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, all these things. I get worn out just looking at the list of all the things that need to be incorporated in this letter of intent. But guys, we're going to buckle up and we're going to do this thing. So again, what is that letter of intent? It is a written document that includes all these elements in it to make sure that we have covered everything. It's kind of like the same reasons that we stay up at 3 o'clock going, what's going to happen to my kid? The things that we're worrying about are likely embedded in this letter of intent. So I want to be real clear that a letter of intent, it's not a legal instrument, okay? It's not something that you would have to go through probate court. Can you even enforce a letter of intent? But having that letter of intent, it's a very, I think it has the gravity, it's something that I think when we have the family mapping out exactly what they want to see, it takes some of the guesswork out of the person who comes next to us. Like I can just imagine, if I were to get hit by a bus today and my sister were to come in to try to help manage my son's affairs, one of the questions is going to go over and over in her mind. What would Anna do? What would she say? What would she want, right, for Eric? And so by mapping all of this out in this letter of intent, you're taking some of that guesswork out, which is going to give a lot of support and guidance and comfort, honestly, to the person coming after you. So again, this is the manual that we always wanted. And so it's going to begin with the family history. So all of this is narrative, right? So we're just writing about all these things that are important, a general overview, what is Eric like? What are his interests like? All those things, his medical history, his current level of care, what education did he have? What employment does he have? A thorough review of all government benefits that he currently has, because we want to make sure that we're protecting those, right? What his current daily schedule looks like, other things around his environment, the social, religious, like, going to First Tuesdays is important to him. Being able to participate in Special Olympics, that's important to him. Behavior management, if somebody is in the care of your loved one, especially if they don't, see them day in, day out, they may not know all of the cues. So being able to explain, what particular triggers might be, and what that looks like, is going to be important. What's important to the individual, what's important for the individual. Like medication management is really important for my son. Is it important to him? He doesn't ever think about medication management, but it's important for him. What's important to him? Halloween, Christmas, all the holidays, all birthdays, having something to do, being able to see his friends. These are things that are important to him. So you can imagine if you haven't mapped all of this out, how easy it would be for somebody to miss something, for somebody to not realize if something is important to or important for, how mistakes could be made, right? So this is a great tool to use to help map out what that process looks like. But think about it. Is their daily schedule today going to be the same daily schedule 10 years from now or even next year, right? It changes. So the letter of intent is one of those things that has to be updated. I view it as like a living document. So we have it, but then we're going to go back to it. And as we hit milestones, it's going to change. And this is particularly important for families with little ones because, if you are working on a letter of intent really super early when your child is, I don't know, 4, 5, right now their daily schedule is going to school. We don't even know where they're going to be when they reach adulthood, right? So it's going to be imperative that we look at this as something that is a continuous and ongoing document, particularly as it relates to the medical history and care, and as it relates to those government benefits. Okay, so that's very important. So here we are with the resources. So what we're going to do in the next few minutes is I want to probe some of these areas. And you're going to get a copy of this presentation and all, but I want you to be able to use this as an opportunity to learn. So this first link with the life care planning, developing a life care plan, this is through the specialneedsalliance.org. This is your research opportunity. Okay. This is a wonderful site that's going to tell way more than what I've been able to share this morning about the benefits of life care planning. And it's going to, again, go through all those elements of a life care plan and how it's used. So resource number one, view that as this is your research opportunity to read more about it. Oh, here it is right there. Look at this. It's beautiful. So talks about transition planning, goes into more detail about, should you do guardianship, should you not? So it's just a wonderful tool. This is a good site that you might want to, just star as one of your favorite sites. And then the other slides, we'll take a look at some of those resources. Those are actually going to be sample letters of intent, because you can see this can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Trying to put all of this information together and trying to start from scratch is, again, you're just kind of staring at that blank paper. You write your child's name at the top, you put the date on it, you get overwhelmed and you walk away, and then you come back and you look at it again. So let's look at templates to help guide us along that process. So the next resources on that slide, templates. And so we actually had one through BDI. That's also a pretty good template, but these are pretty easy to complete. So let me see if we can pull that up real quick. So the letter of intent for Affinia, as well as the ARCS letter of intent, these serve as templates. So here's the one through Affinia. And so, I mean, it's pretty, right? So again, think about the person coming next to you. They have this multi-page document. They're going to feel a little more confident about what they need to do. Let's see. All right. So, and here's the ARC. They have a simple template on theirs as well. So, Bobby, can we scroll through this Affinia letter of intent? Thank you so much for putting everything in the chat box, because it's hard to cut and paste out of those slides sometimes. So you can see it starts, again, putting the person's name at the top and your information, and then they scroll down, they can attach a photo to it. Let's see. I'm going to try to pull it up on my side. Hold on one sec. Oh, here we go. There we go. Here's the table of contents. Yeah. So it's giving you an overview of everything. See how comprehensive this is? Has a nice little letter written from the developers of it. So that's kind, and it gives you some more information. This is one of the most comprehensive templates I've seen. I really like this. See how it's form fillable? So, what's the vision that you have of your child's life? So it's really thinking like, what is it that you want? You want them to have a purposeful life. What does that look like? And so some of it may be like what you want now versus in the future, what you see, what somebody else may see. What's the core role that you want the next person to be overseeing? Again, all of this is unique and personal to you. What your vision is may be different from a friend's vision. So being able to think about these things and codify them, like what is most important to you? What is it that you're looking for? What personal thoughts would you care to share with future caregivers? This is where, sometimes we get kind of personal with, and this should be personal. It's like, okay, historically in my child's life, we have not always had the best relationship with, and then fill in the blank with the name of a family member, maybe even a parent. Maybe it's a situation where the family's divorced, and there's some concern that some family member may be at risk for exploiting the loved one financially. So this is something that you can put in your letter of intent. It's like, I want you to steer clear of so and so. We have a history with these kinds of things. I want you to really look at this person as an additional support. So this is the document where you get real, okay? Where you just put everything that's in your mind out onto this paper. And again, it's not a legal instrument, so it's not binding, but it's going to completely take out the guesswork and is going to make sure that the person who comes after you is better equipped to help follow through with all these guidelines. So you can see here's biographical and personal information, all this information about the individual and about people that are important to that person. Let's see if we can scroll through that. There's all the medical information. So you would, and again, remember, things are subject to change. It's not unusual that we have people that get new diagnoses, or, at one point they're able to do some of these ADLs, activities of daily living, for themselves, and then other points they're not. So we want to document that here. Here's all the contact information for all the insurance, physicians, specialists, all of this. Honestly, this is the first session that I'm going to say we have homework with this session. And I know this isn't a class where we're going to get back together again, but I would really encourage you to download this, start working on it. You're not going to get it finished in, 20 minutes. It's going to take a while. It's going to be something that you work on. So, do it in sections. I'm going to focus on just the personality traits and preferences section today, because this is something that I can map out. And then the next time you're going to sit down and work on that government benefits section, or I'm going to work on the behavior section. So do it in chunks. Look at all this. I mean, all the way down to clothing and shoe sizes. Again, this is a living document, so that may change over time. Habits and hygiene. What kind of support do they need? What does all that look like? So it's a very, very in-depth, personal document. The meals and dietary requirements, what kind of help do they need? Are they eating a regular diet? Do they have any food sensitivities? Do they have any food aversions? So, if we have somebody with autism who they may not have any known allergies, but they need their food presented in a certain way, or their food can't touch one another, or they only have a limited amount of food, so they'll eat. This is something that we would want to document in that letter of intent. And here's the family and support factors. So this is a really one of the best templates I've seen. Again, this is something that you can download and save and just work through. And somebody asked, is there a checklist for all of this that we can follow? I would say that this presentation kind of serves as that checklist. If you've done everything with those core elements, and then you are working on your letter of intent, the letter of intent more or less guides you through that. There's going to be this section for the government benefits. So if you get to that section and there's nothing to write, okay, then you know what your checklist needs to be. You need to make sure that we are looking at Social Security and those other benefits. So um, I guess at this time, I'm going to open the floor up for questions. I really would encourage you to look at both templates, or both the ARC and this one. Again, it's a very personal decision of, which one works better for you. And then, guys, it's up to you to just carve out some time and get her done. And again, I will be the first to call out how difficult that is, that you have the best intentions of the world. And I am all for holding each other accountable. So and my life is pretty transparent. So if you want to work on yours, I will work on mine. And if you ever want to email yours to me and say, well, how are you doing with yours? I will respond and say, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm struggling with. Again, at the end of the day, we're just parents trying to do the best that we can for our guys, and make sure that we're doing all that we can while we can to make sure that they have everything in place, so that when we're no longer able to guide that, they have a good plan to make sure that that still happens in our absence. What questions do you have? Do you like this template? What do you think? Do anybody have any questions or comments? Does anybody feel overwhelmed right now? I'm seeing some comments. Y'all like the templates. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. I'm just saying, like this, like, wow, this is a big homework assignment, isn't it? Because it's a pretty big document. Remember to take your time with it. Set a reasonable goal that you're not going to try to get all this done in one fell swoop, but we're gonna chip away at it, right? We're gonna chip away at it. So that's the plan. So I would certainly encourage y'all to download this template and to give yourself a goal. By Thanksgiving I will have at least done one section of this, right? So if we are creating reasonable goals for ourselves and have an opportunity to hold ourselves accountable to it, I think we're pretty good. Let me put my email in there. There we go. So feel free to email me about it. So, all right, somebody had a really good question. Does facilitated decision making impact government benefits? No, it does not. So you don't have to worry about that part. Yeah, that's a great comment. It is anxiety inducing, but it is comprehensive, and that's a sweet spot, because I think one of the things that we worry about is that we've forgotten something, like there's some big piece that we haven't done. Isn't that the part that's like, what if I haven't done? So having everything kind of captured together in one document that points to all these other pieces, it's like a security blanket. It's like, yeah, okay, I got this. This is going to be doable. For any other questions? Let's see. Once it's complete, where should you keep it, or should you send it to the person who will take over? Yep, send it to the person who will take over, because what a great discussion opportunity. It's like, look, I've been working on this, and maybe it's something that y'all could even work together, because that can bring the person who's taking over, up to speed with everything. Otherwise, I would actually keep this with all of my other important documents. When 911 happened, I used to do all these traveling all the time. And after that, I had this blue binder, and I called it my death binder. And it had, my life insurance policy information, all of the information that if something were to happen to me, that this binder is going to be able to help. And so that letter of intent would be right there with your other key documents, like your life insurance policy, your will. Everybody needs to have a will. Everybody should have a trust. Well, not everybody, but if that's appropriate for you, if that's applicable, all of these documents should be kind of contained or referenced together.
We have questions, Anna, from Linda, Bridget, and Angela. Linda, you can go ahead and get started. Your microphone is now enabled. Linda R in the chat. I see you raise your hand. Okay, Bridget. Angela, do you have any questions that you want to ask?
There was a really great comment about providing a copy of the letter of intent to, like, if you have attorneys that you're working with, whether it's for guardianship or the special needs trust, they may also want to have this letter of intent as well. So your state planning attorney, that would be a good person to also keep it. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time with this. I know it's a daunting task. But I don't think there's too much to it's not a deep dive, I guess, with the letter of intent. It's not that hard to understand. It's the reason it's so daunting is because it's so comprehensive. So there's nothing in it that you aren't going to be able to answer. It's just taking the time and making sure that you're kind of thinking through, that process. It's hard because we're talking about a very, very sensitive subject, but we're going to do it, right? We're going to hold each other accountable to it. It's a good question. If you have the trust in government accounts and your child grows up and no longer needs them, what happens to those accounts? So let's say you have that special needs trust set up. Anita, can you help me with that one? What was is your best advice for somebody who no longer needs that? They don't have Medicaid anymore, so there's no need for that. What should they do with that trust? Oop, you're still
Unmute
on.
yourself.
I didn't see the question. It was
It,
um if they're not receiving benefits anymore, but they still have the trust.
Right, like they don't need the benefits anymore. So they don't have Medicaid, they're not eligible for a waiver, they don't need that. What should they do with the supplemental needs trust that they set up when they were younger?
Well, the special needs trusts are irrevocable, meaning you can't, excuse me, you can't cash out of it, or you can't say, okay, we're done, we don't need to use it anymore. So I would recommend still using it for um, whatever resources you can, I mean, whatever services you need to use it for, and just let it, just use those funds up as you can, because you're not able to, it's an irrevocable trust, which is frustrating, but typically the trusts are created because people are going to continue to receive their benefits forever. So, um, yeah, it's irrevocable.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
Carla from she's in the chat. She's raising her hand. Carla, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Gotcha. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that the trust would be irrevocable. However, does um, okay, say that you're no longer here and the trustee um, is able to still manage the funds and there's not really a need. So what kinds of things will they continue to do with, you know, can any of it be transferred to another person?
So you meaning the funds left over in the trust?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. So it can't be transferred to another person, but it can still pay for all those things. um, Bob, if you want to go back to that slide of mine, of what it can pay for, I mean, it can pay for, lots and lots of things. So,
Yeah. So it should
um,
be able to be used up. Oh,
right,
thank you
right.
for putting it back up there. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so yeah, you can continue to use it. It just because it has that Medicaid payback too, we can't, if you agree to set up the trust so that you can receive benefits and the money, and then and you promise to pay back Medicaid when the beneficiary passes away. So if you're not receiving benefits anymore, but you want to cash out, then Medicaid will say, well, wait, you agreed to receive benefits and receive these funds, um, at the same time. We could have just let you use the funds instead, and then put your benefit, and then you can apply for benefits again once you've used all this money. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it makes it, you know, it is what it is, but it can pay for so many things, that
Well, if the what do you call the person who we're building the trust for? If they pass away, what
but
happens to the additional funds?
but the beneficiary, when the beneficiary passes away, we notify Department of Community Health. They send us a Medicaid lien letter. We pay that amount. If there's any funds left over from that amount, then it will go to wherever it's designated to go when the trust is created. So we fill out a joinder agreement, which is setting up the account, and in that agreement it has remainder beneficiaries, meaning whoever the remainder of those funds are going to go to is designated in the agreement.
Okay, gotcha. Thank
And we
you.
have,
Hmm.
thank you, Carla. And we have one more question in the chat from Elizabeth and Raphael. Elizabeth, you can unmute yourself. All right. Well, okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. On your screen is email address that you can reach out to us. Your email based on your questions will be redirected to the appropriate person here at Bobby Institute. This QR code on the screen, if you scan it, it's going to take you to a quick survey, so you can tell us how we did today. And if you attended previous sessions, you can also answer some questions regarding those sessions. Our upcoming webinar is on October 26th, and it will cover working as a Social Security beneficiary, and we'll have Anna covering the basics of this one. And then here is how you can stay in touch with Bobby Institute. You see our website, which is bobby.org. This is where you can find the application for our services. And then we're also on all social media channels where you can follow us for the latest happenings here around the organization. Thank you so much again for joining us, and I'll see you next time.